$50,000 is a lot of shoes. Susie Greene, the editor of Colorado Independent. Thanks for being here. Enjoy your cigar?
Thanks for getting my name right.
You're welcome. You have an attitude. All right, we talked months ago about an incident where you were not acting ladylike. Let's just do a quick refresher on that and then bring it up to why now you have $50,000 to spend on shoes.
Okay, so like you to get all the facts wrong.
What?
I don't have $50,000 yet.
You're
it hasn't been approved by the City Council. In July of 2018, I was driving to the bank. There was a gaggle of police standing around a naked African-American man who was handcuffed and butt naked seated on the sidewalk on Colfax Avenue. And I saw one of them laughing, and so I stopped and I started taking photos of the officers' handling of this man. And
stop there for a second. What got you? Was it that they were laughing that bothered you, or would you have, as a reporter, pulled over just because there was a scene there to see what was going on? Did your spidey sense go off?
My spidey sense, my spidey sense is pretty
awful,
acute,
terrible.
And no, I had covered excessive force cases involving police and sheriff's deputies in Denver, including the killings of vulnerable African-American men. And while the officers stood around and did nothing. So journalists stop all the time. Most times we stop and there's no story. But in this case,
you became the story.
I did. And I was told I couldn't photograph so you pulled
out your phone, you were taking pictures because that's what you do. You're annoying. So when you were taking pictures, the cop said, "Would you please stop that?"
No, that's not what they said.
Yeah, I saw the tape. "Excuse me, ma'am, you are well dressed, obviously well intentioned. However, for this gentleman's privacy, might we please ask you to refrain from taking photographs?"
That's not what happened.
That's exactly what happened.
They said you're violating his HIPAA rights. And that's ridiculous because HIPAA has to do with medical records and computerized digital things. And there's something called the First Amendment, which I explained to them, which gives me the right to photograph what I like on a public sidewalk, especially police officers doing their jobs.
Especially since, and obviously they were unaware, that Colorado state legislature, I believe, passed a law expressly expanding that, saying, of course you can take the picture, you can record police officers. They obviously did not know this. So they didn't arrest you, they handcuffed you and asked you to act like a lady.
Right, because I apparently wasn't complying with the handcuffing process in a passive enough way.
You think that was it?
What do you think it was? Because you clearly have lots of thoughts about this.
No, I've got lots of thoughts about you, but that's a different topic.
Okay.
So, what happened next? And how is it turning into $50,000?
So they handcuffed me, they told me to act like a lady. We threatened to sue the city for violating my First Amendment rights. The lawyers...
They let you go.
They let me go after 14 minutes, yeah.
All right. Why do you think they let you go? Did somebody...
Because I'm a middle-aged white woman journalist who, So
do you think you were like an old, fat, bald guy? Do you think they would have arrested me?
I think if it happened not in broad daylight, not right in front of the Capitol on the central street, Colfax Avenue of our capital city, and if I hadn't been a journalist and I hadn't started talking about my First Amendments, and they might know who I am because I do a lot of coverage of them, if all of those things hadn't been true, I very much think I would have been charged. I think I would have been, had, some time in jail in a court case, and I would still be involved in it because this happens all the time. It does. Police don't like to be photographed. Many of them.
Many of them.
Yes.
I know lots of cops who are
some of my best friends.
Friends are police.
Yeah.
Yes. Actually, it's true. And they like, most of them that I know really are in favor of their body cams. They say it has helped them much more than it's hurt them.
Yeah.
And in this case, I don't think it did them any favors because the cops were put on. What happened to the police?
They were disciplined like a couple days' pay, which is nothing really, except in the city it's kind of something because they...
A couple days' pay is still a couple days' pay.
Well, and to be clear, they've killed people and not been docked a couple days' pay.
That's not what we're talking about here.
Well,
they held you for 15 minutes.
14.
14 minutes, and they lost 2 days' pay for it. Was that enough?
No, it wasn't enough. I mean, I think they need training. And so when beyond the $50,000 settlement, much more valuable than that is that we've had policies changed so that with a trainer of our choice who flies out at the city's expense from New York City, he's the chief legal counsel for the American Press Photographers Association. He comes and trains every police officer on First Amendment rights.
This is part of the settlement you worked out.
But you're interrupting me, and
yes,
they have to watch
that's because
that.
I'm much more interesting.
They have to watch that video for once a year for 5 years, and in addition, you're going to hate this so much, and you're going to mock it, but that's only going to show your ignorance. Is that a sensitivity trainer is going to come in and talk to them about gender sensitivity, about racial sensitivity, about...
I could teach this class.
You need this class, and I invite you to come with.
Can I heckle?
No.
Then I'm not going.
All right.
Well, so
you ought to love this, because the only thing we agree on, is the First Amendment, and it's really like maybe the only thing you and your 3 viewers out there watching from their basement where they're hunkered down, stockpiling for the revolution.
One of my viewers is a neo-Nazi, and he doesn't like the First Amendment either.
Well, the neo-Nazis enjoyed their right to protest in Skokie, and the ACLU defended that.
I completely support the First Amendment. I think you have every right to record that. I am thrilled that the police had to admit their wrongdoing on that. I think it's terrific that that was a teaching moment for the Denver police to be to know that they have to allow people to take pictures if that's so the case. The identity politics aside, I don't think they need gender sensitivity classes, but they need to know First Amendment classes.
So we're going to go back to the inevitable thing you and I are going to talk about. You have a disabled son. What if a police officer calls him a gimp? I know you're going to purport on TV to say you're fine with it, but you're really not deep down, because that would make you a monster. And so that would prevent that kind of thing from happening.
Actually, let me clarify your oversimplification.
Can we stop holding these cigars?
I don't know. You seem kind of turned on by it.
Okay.
If someone called my son a name, it would not bother me. What would bother me is how they treat my son. And treating is not words. Treating is how if they arrested him because of that, if they discriminated because of that, then yeah, absolutely. But I don't care what words you use, because they change every 3 days, because you people can't figure out what's politically correct every day.
It's absurd to purport that treating does not mean words, but it's not. It's neither here nor there, because we're really on the same page about this First Amendment thing.
So you filed, was it a lawsuit or just a complaint?
It was a complaint, so it never went to court, and the city attorney negotiated with Mari Newman and Andy McNulty at Kilmer, Lane and Newman, who volunteered their services on this, and they talked for about a year, and they worked this out.
And now you get to choose which hypersensitive...
No, they chose.
No, they chose.
Yeah, the lawyers. I mean, we talked about it. We figured it out.
And so the city now has to fly some hypersensitivity trainer to come in and talk to them.
I'm not sure that she needs to fly in. She might live here, but I don't think the mode of transportation is that important.
The cost is important, because we, the taxpayers, have to pay for it. And we're going to have to pay you $50,000 if this is okay by the city council.
You don't live in Denver, but...
I pay taxes.
We are. Okay, fine. Yes. but yeah, technically, yes. I mean, if it's approved by the city council.
Okay. What are you going to do with the 50 grand?
Buy you a new pair of shoes.
And as many times as I've bought you drinks, maybe you could buy a round this time.
Okay.
For 50 grand.
I don't think that's true, but what am I doing? I'm
What are you gonna do with
giving
50?
much of it to my nonprofit that I run. I'm going to give.
So the question, the 50 grand goes to you.
It does.
You look better already.
I know.
Amazing.
I know.
So, what are you going to do with the 50 grand?
I just told you I'm
Well,
going.
vacation would be nice.
I am going.
I'm free.
I'm going to give much of it to the Colorado Independent, which I run, and other people should be reading. I know you don't read, but
I look at the pictures sometimes.
yeah, and I think a little bit of it might go to my kids' college, fund, which could use some help. Yeah.
So you've just figured out a new line of work of suing the cops and making a little
if
profit.
you want to reduce it to something that base,
I do.
I
All right, let's talk about, we have a minute left.
Yeah.
Talk about, you believe this is very systematic. I mean,
do.
you are truly excised by this. You are, you want,
why? Because if you're a police officer and you enforce the law, you should know the first law of this land, which is the First Amendment. It's kind of basic.
Okay. How widespread is the disregard for the First Amendment in law enforcement?
I think it's very widespread, and for the most
Give
part,
me
it's
some
not
examples.
directed. For the most part, it's not directed at the media. Although certainly, we've been threatened by a president who wants to limit media rights. But it has to do with, especially people of color, vulnerable populations who get messed with sometimes by some police officers, like to flip out their smartphones, which is actually an amazingly democratic small d tool, and videotape them for accountability. And so they need the right to do that, because often those videotapes do become the news and they affect public policy. We need to know what's going on.
Susan Greene, the very wealthy Susan Greene, thank you much. Listen for me on KHOW Radio. Read me in the real paper, the Denver Post. We'll see you next week.